Welcome to the XrossroadZ Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? It's your man, Hunter Grand, your personal agent for change, making life easy, Barz Dre.
And I'm fempreneur extraordinaire, tech diva all day, Dre Renee.
And this is the Crossroads, where there's only one rule.
Be free to be you.
Another week at the Crossroads. What up, though?
Hey, we back.
Exactly. But we got a pretty interesting show this week. We are talking about relationships, but relationships of a different kind. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump right into the sponsor so that we can get into this week's discussion. So y'all, as always, the XrossroadZ Podcast is brought to you by the House of 334.
It's the house.
For all your business branding and copyright needs, go to houseof334.com. It is Black owned, it is woman owned, and it is amazing. And the XrossroadZ Podcast is also brought to you by the Crossroads. Y'all can go to our bit.ly, that's bit.ly/the Crossroads. That's THEXROSSROADZ. All of our links, all of our social media is there, and also our Patreon. So don't forget to not only subscribe to this channel that you're watching right now, but you go to our Patreon and support us as well. So that's patreon.com/the Crossroads. So y'all, we've had people that have been donating to the show and keeping us going, but now here's an opportunity for us to do it on this platform to show your support. And we are also doing additional content. So what do we get in the Patreon? You get to join us for our watch party. This is where we take series or movies or ones that we find or that you suggest, and we do recaps and reactions to them as well. And you have the opportunity when we do it live to join in those discussions. Also, exclusive lives for our members will be on the Patreon, and our community where we will be doing personal development challenges. And we have one that's going to be starting up very, very soon. So make sure you pop in and join us for all of those things and more, right? So it's that and more that's coming. That'll be right there on the Patreon. So please join us and support so that we can continue to grow. And we want you to grow with us. Even if you are a day one or a one day, we love you all the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are we talking about this week? Let them know.
We're talking about the seasons of friendship. Seasons of friendship. And I think mostly fall, winter. I think we're talking a little bit more about fall.
Spring, summer is like, We've been spring, summer for over 20 years, and I think we may have had a winter.
Everybody has things to overcome, but like I never considered our friendship to be in a winter, right? So you might have had some chilly moments or misunderstandings or flat out like you get on my nerves, right? But I don't think I've ever, which is a blessing, I don't think I've ever considered our friendship to be in a winter. So
all right.
I appreciate
so for some people's friendship, winter is coming. So, y'all gotta know I'm a Game of Thrones nerd, so it's some Ned Starks out there where winter is coming. But I think it is an interesting conversation because we normally talk about romantic relationships, and then of course you have some friendships that started from failed romance, but friendships nonetheless. But we can talk about the ebbs and flows of relationships. Like it started this and it was hot and heavy, and then it turns into you don't do the things that you did to get me, and when are we getting married? And it's that we know the ebbs and flows of romantic relationships, and we get it. And I think there's no shortage of those conversations. But how do you navigate your platonic relationships, right? And like, do we give them the same grace, priority, energy? You know what I'm saying? Like, how intentionality. How important should these things be in our friendships, right? Because, and I don't want to give too much because we want to follow our notes, but I think sometimes we can take all of those things, all of the aforementioned, for granted because we assume we're friends and you should be here no matter what. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter what happens, you're my friend and you should be here. So
right.
So Yeah, our first stop in the discussion, let's just say,
Mm-hmm.
is the question: does it matter how you became friends? And I guess I'm interpreting that like the level of friendship, like does how you become friends determine the kind of friends you are and what should happen in the friendship?
Um, I would say so, I guess. Because and also how do you define friend, right? Because there
Mm-hmm.
are levels, right? As I was growing up, you were, associates or acquaintances, and then your
Mm-hmm.
friends, and you had your besties. So I think for the sake of this conversation and to keep it from being like super, super all over the place, we would likely be talking about either best friends or friends with some longevity, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think it matters how you became friends as much as like the closeness of your bond. Because I will
Mm-hmm.
say, honestly, in the last few years of my life, I have come to meet people and create kinship with folks in a time where I thought that I was too old to make new friends. Like I thought, like, okay, the friends that I have, particularly those that I made in my late teens, early 20s, like, the college years, were the ones for
Mm-hmm.
life. And some of you are, and some of you, winters
Winter has
upon us.
come.
Yeah. Winter is upon us.
Winter came for our friendship. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm seeing and feeling things a little differently, enough to know that there's seasons of friendship and then there are seasons of friends, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm still in the summer of my life, but if
Mm-hmm.
I'm going into fall, right? Um,
Spring.
okay. If I'm
Yeah.
spring, if
Even
I'm
I'm going to the sea. I'm going backwards, and I'm not going in chronological season order. But if you're going into any other season of your life, if you're coming out of your summer, you're going into spring. It's like a subtle,
okay. Well, as I'm getting older, whatever season it is, okay, as I'm getting older, I think I am coming to find out and appreciate that sometimes you are gaining friends and
Mhm.
associates for that season,
Yeah.
right? Season of your life in terms of your age, but also season of your life based on what you are actually experiencing, right? To
Hmm.
go through caregiving for a parent into loss and grief, that's a pretty heavy season.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, everybody's not traveling the road with you, or in the way that you may expect.
Yeah.
And so, or, and it doesn't have to be something so heavy in terms
Hmm.
of emotionally. It might be going in the other direction, like getting married and or having children. It may be starting a business or a venture like we have with the podcast. Like it might be great things happening and you find that that friend is not necessarily on the journey with you.
Hmm.
Um, or that new people have come to help you through that
Hmm.
particular journey. So your question was,
Doesn't
does
matter.
it matter? And I'm saying, I guess it's a yes and a no.
Hmm.
It's more to me about the closeness, but also recognizing that people are going to be the players are going to change,
Hmm.
whether or
Yeah.
not you
Yeah.
expected it, or doesn't have to be a fallout necessarily,
Hmm.
but the players change as the
Yeah.
story goes on.
And I do think certain factors come into play for some people. So, like, if I'm making a sports analogy,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who is traded to a team versus drafted, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, somebody who has come off the bench, whatever, and kind of earned their way up versus somebody who came in to be the star player,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think an example of that might be friends of friends. You know, it's kind of like going into the friendship, do you navigate that differently? Because hey, I met you through this friend, and then if winter comes for the connector friend, does
winter extend to the connected friend?
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because then you have friends that have a problem with you, or let's say those two friends fall out, and now there's expectation from both of them for you to choose a side.
Oh God, I never even thought about that. Jeez.
You see what I mean? And so, but you've got that, like you've had friends that are like, we have some mutual friends that were married and divorced, and one of the friends said, "Oh, I guess they got you in the divorce," right? Like, not that I chose a side; it was just the relationship continued with more regularity than the other, you know? But then you have those who have an expectation of that. Like, nah, you can't. Or you know how people like, I don't fool with people who fool with people I don't fool with.
Right. Yeah. I don't. And hopefully, as we get older, we don't do that, right? Like, and you may put. Okay, I'm always saying what we don't do, and what I'm generally talking about is me and you, but I need to consider that other people are listening to our conversation. It's not just, it's really not just me,
because we both know better.
So I'm like, okay, retract. It's a hope that as we reach a particular age, you know, that we don't make it mandatory for someone to do that. I mean, I think there should be a level of, hey, you know, if you are going to continue a relationship with this person, like, please don't invite me to, you know, situations where we would be together. Like those type of things that you want to protect your peace and your personal experience. But I'm not going to say, like, if it's your birthday party, I'm not going to say, well, you know, you can only invite me or that person. It's your birthday. I have to make the decision about what I do with the invite that I receive, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. Now,
but
based on the decision that you make, winter might be coming for everybody. I don't know, you know, and it just depends on the situation, you know.
Because I'm like, listen, both of y'all are my friends. I'm having a party. I'm expecting both of y'all to be there. What y'all do when you get there is between y'all. Y'all can avoid each other. Just don't start no drama, right? I'm not doing it, and I'm not even going out of my way to be like, hey, such and such. Look, you know, I'm still their friend. I need you to understand that there's a likelihood they're going to be there.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a man would do that women would handle a little differently. I'll just say that. I won't say better or worse, but we would handle a little differently because the expectation is just there. It's like, you know, we would at least have a conversation. It's not going to be, well, you know what it is, and so I expect you to show up and be mature. Yes, but also right.
I think as men and women, typically, not always, typically we handle, like, men, we can actually, let me say the men I know. Right, and myself included, I can actually share the same space with somebody I don't like. I can be cordial with that person. I don't fool with you like that. Like, I'm gonna show, hey, what's, you know, oh well, no, hey, what's up, man? You good? Okay, what's up? You know, I'm not gonna ruin the night because, you know, if we buy around, like, look, we're here tonight. We gonna have a good time. I'm not calling you when we leave. I didn't invite you.
That's very adult.
Yeah, no, but it's just like, that's just usually how we rock. Or if we need to go hands, we go hands, and then we dead it. Like, you know what I mean? But beyond that, it's like, yeah, maybe I don't call you. I'm not showing up to your event that you're sponsoring, but I'm not gonna not come to the other friend's event just because you're gonna be there. You know what I mean? So I think, you know, and I'm not saying that's all you got. Some dudes like, nah, I ain't coming through. He gonna be there, dude. I'm too over. I don't get out.
I think it depends on why, right? Because if it's something like, you know, he smashed your, you know, ex or your current,
you know what?
I don't think guys is buying rounds for folks that have, you know.
No, I ain't buying you no round. But now, if you harm somebody that I love, okay, I think the stakes are different. If you smash somebody that I was with, she chose, Like,
okay, like I said, that's very adult.
I mean, there's just certain rules though. Like, even the homies will tell you, like, hey, bro, like, if I was with her and my girl smashed another dude, period. But even my home, like, yeah, you wrong, but also there's a code there. She chose. You know what I'm saying? So I gotta deal with that. Because honestly, that's a worse, depending on the circle, it's a worse look on me. That I'm tripping, like, hey, that really wasn't your chick. You know what I'm saying? He's not, granted, he's not really my homie. Or what was the relationship with me and her? Because actually there was a situation like that with two people close to me, right? And while the one that smashed the girl was still wrong, very wrong, because we told him, the other one wasn't honest about his feelings about her either.
Yeah, seen that happen before.
He played it cool.
I was gonna say, try to keep it on the low, and
cool. Then he was because actually he's like, oh, she cool to the. But the fact was, he liked her, and he didn't just flat out say, hey, I like her. Now the other homie was still a snake for what he did, because he asked about it, and he asked the homies about it, and we were all like, no, leave it alone. He asked me, he asked the other, my god brother, he asked my pops. Like, this is all in the same day. And we were all like, nah, bro, leave it alone. Leave it alone. And he didn't leave it alone. And so he kind of got kicked out the family. Everybody stopped fooling with him, But it wasn't the first time that he did that. Like, he was smashing.
He's a serial smasher.
Right. But, be that as it may. And it was worse because of the closeness. He was more than friend. He was family. So it happens, but there was still a connection. Like, when my godmother passed, he still came through, and wasn't nobody like, like, there was still an allowance for that. Like, we dropped everything for that. But I think it's so many factors that come into play, and I honestly think friendships can get more complicated than relationships. I think relationships are way more straightforward.
Yeah, I heard somebody describe, I don't know if it was something I was listening to on YouTube, but like friendships being relationships where you can, fully be yourself and not have to worry about the repercussions of that, right? Like, that's like true.
You said
true
that was
friendship.
this show.
That was this show on YouTube. Hey, see, I be watching the Crossroads. The Crossroads.
Well, because I was telling the story of the ex.
Okay. So
when I said
this is not an episode that has aired yet, I'm assuming.
No, this was season 1. This was season 1.
Oh, okay. So what I wanted to connect with that was, while that's good, right, that you're able to be your full self, I think sometimes the fact that we are not as disciplined, if you will, with our friends and in our friendships, can open the door to some of these other things, right? Like, in your relationships, generally, and definitely as you start talking about marriage, you will have certain conversations and make plans for this. If this happens, this is how we'll react, right? Or if this happens, this is money for this. Or, if you decide to do this, I'm going to respond this way. But in friendships, many times, I think our expectation is for our friend to roll with us through whatever iteration of us shows up, whatever happens in our lives, whoever we bring to the party. Like, we don't have the conversations like, right. Okay, Jason, sorry, I don't put your name in the street. Barzini, if because I don't call him that. I'm so sorry. Okay. Hey, if I bring, or I wind up marrying somebody that you absolutely hate and hates you, like, how do we navigate that? We don't have those conversations. We just like,
yeah, we do. We've been there.
well, I'm saying
not
the
us,
general,
not me and you, but
the general folks are just like, the expectation is whoever I bring in, you gonna love them like you love me, and that's gonna be that. And or what happens when we're hanging out every day or every week, and now I get a promotion or I get a new job or I have a whole new set of responsibilities and I'm not as available or accessible. What happens after that? So those conversations, because we are not as intentional with our friendships and making those kind of plans, when the season changes, many times we don't know what to do. And I think mature friends will at least have the conversation at that point, and then other friends will just kind of let it rock the boat.
I think expectations just across the board need to be discussed, but then there's just, you got those things that come up like relationships, and we're going there, but when the person that you're with romantically, like you had this friend for forever, and now they're like, nah, I don't want you to be friends with this person no more, right? How do you navigate that with this friend? You know what I'm saying? If you're choosing to, add to the wish, because I don't know if I believe that just because the person that you're with says this, that this is something that you have to adhere to, right? It's kind of like they say, hey, prioritize your partner or your spouse or something like that. But if they're wrong, they're wrong. Or if they're unreasonable, they're unreasonable. But you have this friend, it's kind of like, I think I've been in that space and I've made the decision. I am not entering into a relationship with a woman that is not cool with my friends. Right? Because they've lasted longer than her and will be here if she and I don't work out. You know what I mean? Now, do my friendships look different when I'm in a relationship? Yeah, they have to. Right? That it doesn't mean that you're not my friend or less of my friend. It just means my priorities have to shift. You know what I'm saying? And I think as the person in the relationship and as the friend that's not in the relationship or has their own relationship or whatever, there has to be a shift in both of you, right? So just like in our romantic relationships, we have compromise, and like you got to have that in your friendships, because you get those that are like, oh, I don't hear from you no more, or we don't kick it like we used to, or the whole, and it's like, yeah, I'm married. I have a whole family that I have to tend to. You know what I mean? And we've talked about it on the show before, like, and just for the audience, like, y'all, there are times when we're recording and Dre's like, look, this is how much time I got, or we got to schedule this, and this, because, she got to go minister to her husband. Like, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Now, granted, yeah, he's the executive producer of the show, but he's also her husband. And there are times when he's being husband and he's being executive producer, right? He's husband first. And just like she's wife. Like, so there'll be times where, like, hey, we going, I gotta go. It is what it is. And so we structure the show around that, right? Like, we have our schedule, make no mistake, but also she knows.
Okay. And he be having dating schedule too. Don't be trying to just put this on my.
No, I don't know his schedule. I know yours. So.
I'm talking about yours. You like, oh, I'm going out. Oh, I got a date, because I'm like, well, I'm in the house.
That does. There are times that does happen. It doesn't happen often, and I'm not saying that. I'm just like, I wish I had more of a schedule, in that regard. Yeah. But she's never like, oh no, but what I'm saying is we bring that to the table when we're talking business, and then we create around that, because my priority is, as my friend, her happiness is my priority. And so I want her to have a great marriage and to tend to her. There will never be a time where I will ever say, hey, choose this over your husband. No, take care of your husband. That's always number one, but we talked about that even before she was married or engaged,
Right.
But there's just some people that don't move like that. And so with your friendships, what priority, and I think this is important. It's not so much what priority do you give your friendships in general, but what priority do you give specific friendships? Because some friendships, like, hey, I can see you when I see you, right? But there's just other people, like, because friends become like family and they're just important. Like, you don't even, like, because these are people you choose in your life, just like you choose your partner. Your friends are people you choose. Family, people like, oh, blood thicket, like, just because we had the same name or we got people that share blood don't mean we close, because there are people, you have horrible family members, and I'm not loyal to people just because of our relation if you continue to hurt me,
Right.
So like I'm good on that, you know what I mean. Money and careers, I think this might be a bigger one than the relationship component of it. Like, how do money and careers change and affect friendships?
I don't know. I need to get some money and find out. I would like to know, but
listen, that's about to change dramatically very shortly.
Yeah, I mean, in my friendships, we're, at least as far as I know, we're kind of all in the same bracket, or at least not far enough apart for it to make a huge difference. But I would say more career responsibilities, even into families and children. That makes a difference because, among my friends, I think some days I feel like, oh, I'm in a friend group that doesn't have a lot of kids. And then I look around and I'm like, we do. So I don't know if it's like half and half or if it's just because I know so many people, it feels that way. I think of my true, like, connected friends that I talk to on a regular basis, the majority of them are childless. But I do know a lot of people in my, expanded circle. There are children who are now, gosh, they range, right? Some are children. I think I saw on Facebook a meme that was just like the 40s are wild because some of our friends have like toddlers and then some of our friends have kids graduating from college. It's like
and grandparents.
It's like, what is going on? But I think all those things can make a difference because, again, it changes your routine. It changes your priorities. And we don't necessarily then align, right? So for me and you, if we were like, hey, we want to go on a vacation, right? Now, there may be some things that, you need to check on your side, and I need to check on our side in terms of, availability with job or whatever like that. But other than that, you don't have to find a babysitter. You don't have to work. You pack your bags as long as you have, as long as we have our money and we both want to go to the same place, we can go.
Right.
But when you're in community and friendship with people who have different types of lives, they have multiple children, they may be a single parent. Oh gosh, right? That's a different type of situation. Even when they have children, you can find a family friendly location to go on vacation. Okay, great. But then if it's like, we're trying to go to Vegas or we're trying to go to Miami or we're trying to go, somewhere and hang, and you have children and may not necessarily have the support, then that starts to wear, kind of, then it's like, okay, well, are you going to go without me? And then how many of these things start happening to the point where it's more of a routine for you not to be around than to be around. Right. And that's something big like a vacation, but let's just say like life. that can start to happen. You are so busy in your career, in your responsibilities, in the things that, are driving you professionally, which we are excited about, right? We champion, but as we walk these things out, and this other set of friends or other friend, maybe it's just one-to-one, has more flexibility, maybe is not in the lead, maybe is more of a role player, right? Like, I have a steady job, I go in, I do my work, at 5 o'clock, I'm done. This other person is an entrepreneur, or is a manager, or is a director, or is a vice president, and they don't get to turn it off.
Right.
I can see where that then starts to, or has access to things that this friend doesn't have access to. I'm going to Amsterdam next week.
And see, that's the part where I was going, is about access. But also, see, the thing is career, but that's what money does. See, money gives you access to things that the friend doesn't. And also access to people that this friend does not have access to. So now what your money and career start to do is it expands your circle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So by virtue of what you do every day, like, I'm constantly in connection, in association, in acquaintance, but also, and then some, in communion with. So now these people that have the money that I have want to do with this money does. Hey, we're going to this 5-star or Michelin star restaurant, right? That you can't go to. You know what I mean? Hey, we're all taking this cruise, or we're going on this yacht, blah, 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 right? Or you can go, but now I have to determine whether or not this is even your circle of people, right? Because what are you going to talk about? Not that you're not intelligent and stuff like that, but if we're talking about, like, the industry of which we're working in, and this is not necessarily your vein, there, you can feel left out. How do you feel emotionally about where you are professionally? Because I've invited you to come have a great time, but you're amongst these massively successful people while you're still trying to find your way, right? And so now you're in the circle and people are like, oh, well, what do you do? You see what I'm saying? What, right? I was just in that situation. You know what I'm saying? Not that I was doing bad, but, like, we talked about things that are going on and everything else. And so it's kind of like, but I mean, I answer honestly, because I'm never ashamed of anything that's going on, right? But I'm saying not everybody is comfortable. You know what I mean? And so it's like, when you leave this space, some might feel energized, like, man, I'm inspired, I'm trying to get there. I like being around people, made me feel. And then it was like, there's some that's just like, oh, you know what I mean? And then let's just be honest, you got some jerks that are in the haves, and then, you got this CEO. Oh, well, what do you do? Oh, I'm a teacher. And that's not to, downplay teachers, but let's face it, you're not making 7 figures teaching, you know?
Right.
And so now it's like, you might have aspirations outside of teaching, and this is your job right now, but you want to do this. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, when people have to thank you for what you do, they're typically kind of looking down on you. Or when they say that's an admirable,
noble,
that's noble. Or see, when they say things, oh, we need more people like you, right? Like, that is not a compliment. Oh, that's such a hard job, right? Like, nobody looks at a CEO, you know what I'm saying, and says, we need more people like you. Oh, that's such a hard job. Oh, bless you. Like, we're so lucky to have people like you. You know what I mean? Like, so, and you might be exactly where you want to be. It's like, hey, this is the career that I've wanted my whole life, and I'm happy and I'm fulfilled. And here's somebody talking about how my work is noble. Because basically what they're saying, we know you ain't doing it for the money. You know what I mean? And so I think we have to be mindful of our friends, and then we can't assume for. But how do you have that conversation? Like, hey, I'm going to this white yacht party. you want to go? Like, how do
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? And so there's just a lot. And there are people like, do you feel guilty for your success because you have this friend who isn't moving at the same pace as you?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so do you kind of not do certain things to spend time with this friend, or do you go forward with the life that your work has afforded you?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, yeah, and I absolutely think it's the latter. Um, Depending on when you experience this, and how prepared you are for it, you may initially try to just, I'm trying to bring everybody into the same world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as we navigate and we gain more wisdom and more information, we realize that, you may have to segment certain parts of your life and be okay with that. Because yeah, is it easier? And I don't know if I want to use the word easier, but how does it make your friend feel? Like, even if your intention is, okay, I want all my friends together, or I want to have, everybody in this one space. If that is a situation that would make that person feel uncomfortable, or it would cast a light on the fact that they don't necessarily have the access, or they don't have the know-how, depending, like you said, the conversations that are happening, it's like, is that even a situation that you want to bring your friend into? It
Mm-hmm.
may be better to create or continue the interactions that, the two of you have, or whatever friend circle that you all are a part of mutually, and
Mm-hmm.
keep that completely separate. But I absolutely wouldn't say, deny yourself access that you have worked for, or otherwise rightfully earned or gained. That's not, I don't
Yeah.
think that's the answer either, but it does, it raises an interesting.
Yeah. Now, how would you, and I think this is an important part to talk about too. How do you navigate friends who don't have the same drive that you have
Oh,
professionally? That like you have ambition, you're trying to grow, and a lot of us people who are ambitious, right?
mm-hmm.
They have a vision of their life with their friends coming with them.
Yeah.
There's also a difference, and I think there's a lot of people who've had this experience as they get older. So when you reach success at a young age, a lot of people facilitate for their friends, like pay their way, like, oh, you're going right.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people go broke that way trying to take care of their friends,
Right.
like the providing them their friends a life that their friends didn't earn. Then you get older, like, yeah, I ain't doing like you know what I'm saying. And I'm not saying like you can't do for your friends, but it's kind of like, hey, this friend doesn't have the same life vision as I do.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that they're less my friend, but this friendship is going to look different because there's a life that I want to live, and it doesn't look like the life that they want to live or is living, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think certain things are a lot different. Like, I respect and admire and am inspired by LeBron James' story with he and his friends, with Maverick and Rich, and the Four Horsemen,
Mm-hmm.
because like they had a friendship, and then they all went into business, and they all have their own facets of business, so they went together and achieved individual success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, LeBron is the platform, of course, and then from that platform, or the launching pad, and they've all launched off of that pad, right? It wasn't just, hey, come along for the ride. Like, they're all doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the quintessential story. Like, that would be dope, but that's just not real life for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, how do you move? It's like you see this friend and you want better for them. They not moving.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Well, I realized this about myself, I will say most recently, as I felt seasons change in a couple of places. And I realized that I tend to build very strong bonds with people over work, projects, either things that we're working on together, or that you are someone that's working, building, creating, entrepreneurship, drive and ambition, like, yeah, those same types of people, but particularly even people that I wasn't necessarily looking for as friends, but if we are connected professionally or organizationally or something like that, and we wind up doing something together, and particularly if you're somebody that does your thing, you become my people by default, right? Like, I realize, like, how many folks I have picked up that I consider friends now. Now, of course, there's, we start talking about more personal and interpersonal things along the way, but I think by nature of spending so much time together, having to trust one another with whatever your part or piece is of the puzzle, has brought me into community with people that I did not expect. And also in the reverse, when I see slackers, I'm like, you're not my people, right? So for my friends, though, I think most of us are that type of person. But I've come to find out that we are not all those type of people. And so what I've had to do, especially because I've kind of been on this journey, it was hustle, when I was younger, and then, building businesses and determining what that would then look like going forward, because I didn't want it to always be, speed 100. But throughout that, I have had to silo myself. So not necessarily being that we're not friends anymore, but by default, I couldn't hang and do all the things that people were doing while I had tunnel vision. So I think with that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't be friends. But you will have to make some very strong decisions and set boundaries for yourself. If there are goals that you wish to achieve, and perhaps either, your close friend or your friend circle doesn't have the same type of drive or want to move in that direction with you. I think it's great. I don't think there's anything greater, quite frankly, than friends and or family making those types of moves together. I think, Dame Dash was saying on a pod, like, his goal was to make as many millionaires around him as possible because, hey, God forbid one day, and I'm sure he's experienced it more than one time, right? You wind up going down to zero. You have, if there's 10 of you that are millionaires, you can get 100,000 from everybody and be back on, back where you were, type situation. And of course, that's not necessarily the reason to do it, but it made sense to me, right? Like, if you're the only one that is successful and or developing the habits to be successful, then you're always going to be in a position to have to help somebody. You are not going to have anybody to help you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be financial. Of course, that's what we're talking about in this example. But let's just, talk about life. If you're always the person that has the listening ear, and that's it, one day you're going to need somebody to listen, and you wind up looking around and you have all these friends, or you have friends that you can identify, but not one of them can return what it is that you give. I've
definitely felt that before. But and again, like, you're right, it does the measure of the people that are around you that you surround yourself with. It makes me think of, you bring up Dame Dash, but I'm thinking Jay-Z on Boss with him and Beyonce. What's that line he say? Over here we measure success by how many people successful next to you. Here we say that you broke if everybody is broke except for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I guess that it can be real lonely too. Like, I definitely want the people around me to be successful, but I also don't want the responsibility of having to carry them. You know, not to say that I won't assist, but it's like it feels better when you're coming up and you're trying to encourage them to come up too. Like, we're all in our individual spaces coming up, or if we're working together, like, hey, let's go.
Let's do it. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It just feels better when you both get there, because it is hard to look back and try to reach back and drag somebody along. And the reality is there are a lot of people, even your friends, that only want to jump on moving trains. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like you might have this idea or this play, and you're like, hey, look, and they're like, and then so you go and move forward, and then when it gains momentum, now they want to, now they see it. You know what I mean? And so I mean, we've had people even with the pod, like right. When we were first starting, there were people that didn't see it. We've had people that started their own pod around the same time, and the majority of them have dissolved.
Yeah.
And so success is a slow burn. You know what I mean? Like, it really is. And so when you have people and they've been seeing you grind and grind and grind, and sometimes people have some, like, hey, you've been doing this for a while, it ain't did such and such yet, or it's like you see the growth, but they don't see it. And then all of a sudden, once you get that breaking moment, it's going to seem like your success was instantaneous, but it wasn't. And I remember stating this before. It's like, when you get on, you got those people that are like, yeah, I've been here the whole time. I remember when you have been here the whole time doing nothing.
Absolutely. Not doing a doggone thing.
You know what I'm saying? You was here. You was here.
Right about that. You was there.
Yeah. When they said I was here the whole time, you sure was. Because they're looking for, like, they're looking for credit. You know what I'm saying? Clout. Just because you remember when I was doing this. All right. Well, when I was here, I remember when you were sleeping on your mama's couch. Okay, and you had an extra bed. Right. Now I wasn't asking for the bed, but you had it. So don't look at me now that I'm in a mansion from my mama's house, and somehow your presence was a part of my ascension.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, don't discredit those friends who were there trying to do things and lent what they had available. You know what I mean? But yeah, I've heard that. I remember when you. Did you? Okay, I remember too.
Right. My memory is vivid.
Exactly, and I didn't forget. So I know we're getting short on time, but I do want to get to some of the question submissions that we had for the show that people submitted. We may not get to all of them, but I definitely want to get to some of the questions. So what's the first question that we had?
Question 1. How do you know when it's time to let go of a friendship that no longer serves you versus putting in the effort to repair or rekindle it during a challenging season? That's good. Same for relationships for me too.
Yeah. I think the operative word there is serves, right? Like, what does that mean? I think you need to identify how this particular friendship was serving you. You know what I mean? because it's, or do friendships need to serve you? You know what I mean? Like,
That's good.
it's like, am I am I
I
only
mean,
here to, I think you should get something from every
yes, they
friendship,
should. Yeah, I was gonna say
but
yes,
I
but
think it's
serve maybe is
but
not the
I
word,
think
but
it's
yeah.
the what,
Hmm.
right? Like sometimes you have those friendships to where we don't talk for a long time, but when we do, it's like some are just very nostalgic and we just talk and we laugh and we have a good time when we talk, right?
Hmm.
But maybe the question is about those more consistent friendships where you talk all the time. um I don't, it's a hard one for me because I think for me it's about when we do talk, the value that I get. And for me, it's kind of like when I no longer have the value in those conversations, I just don't talk to you as much. I personally don't cut people off, right? And I don't end friendships. I just navigate in those friendships accordingly. The ones that I guess I do serve, I have value in the conversations or whatever, those are the ones that I talk to more.
Hmm.
And then the other ones that I don't talk to you as often, or maybe we talk when you call me, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we're not friends. It's just this is the compartment where it is. And then sometimes they kind of just fall off where we haven't talked in a couple of years. I
Yeah.
don't be like, oh, well, why are you calling me? We're not friends no more. We ain't talking in a couple of years. It's like, oh, hey, maybe we have a lot to catch up on, or maybe we don't have much to talk about.
Hmm.
But I kind of just let them naturally take their course, and I move throughout my life the way that I move, and the people who are present in the areas that I need are there. Like me and Dre talk every day, pretty much. Even whether we're jumping on, if it's a text, if it's a call, check in,
Hmm.
if it's a personal call, if it's a business call, like we're in constant contact. And we've there was a point to where we didn't see each other for a long time. Well, actually, still, I mean,
Still,
we see each other, but we haven't
yeah,
seen
been
each
in
other
the
in
same
person,
space.
in the same space, in a long time. But that doesn't make us less friends because we're still in the same
Connected.
space,
Hmm.
you know. So I think you just take inventory, and you prioritize your friendships accordingly based on your need. I never really feel the need to cut anyone off. I just don't try to hold on, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. Because
It
so
does.
basically, if you fall off, you fall off.
Right. Right. I'm not like
No, I ain't
not
gonna push you
holding you,
off.
but I'm
Yeah,
not
I ain't gonna
pushing you.
hold you, but I ain't
Yeah.
pushing you.
Yeah.
So,
I
what
like
about
it.
you?
I agree. I think this is something that the Lord was dealing with me on over the past few months. It was what he said was, I was concerned about a friendship or a couple of friendships not showing up in the way that I thought that they would. Um, and he was like, but are you missing anything? And it made me really pause, right? Because my life is such now that I do have a wonderful husband who picks up the lion's share, really, of anything I could expect or want in a friendship. I already have it under the same roof, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so um, I thought about that, and whatever. I won't say whatever I don't have there, but additionally, as I mentioned, there are new friendships and connections that I have made over the past few years. That, in particular, when I lost my dad, there was such an overwhelming amount of love and support, and selfishly, I did have a moment of like, but where are my folks? And I thought, or what he really revealed to me was like, they're right there, right? Because there was nothing that I missed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such a huge blessing for me. And the reason why I shared that is that sometimes we may be looking for certain things in certain people, And another friend actually shared this with me. Sometimes our expectation for people is beyond their capacity for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And extending that grace just to say, you know what, this might not have been in your wheelhouse, your toolkit right now or ever. Because sometimes we love people so much that we don't even consider like, this is just who they are, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we have a good time together doesn't mean, you know, that you can be counted on when it's winter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's having that kind of realization and being mature enough to say, like, I am taken care of, provided for, blessed, despite, you know, looking for it in a particular place, just being grateful that you are receiving it. And then also recognizing what these new connections mean. Because I think sometimes we put so much weight on, you know, how long we've been with a person and they have the priority, right? Like, this is my bestest, because we've known each other for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
But in the past 4 years that have been the roughest of your life, you know, you've been going through that with somebody that you've only known for 5 years.
Right.
And may not necessarily be appreciating their value right there. So I am with you with not necessarily ending relationships or friendships in that way, but allowing them to take their course. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Marie Kondo. And so she's like a organization specialist. I don't know if her show is still on Netflix, but you can look it up if or Google her if you like. But I watched it when it first came out, and it was, you know, about decluttering and, you know, throwing away things that you don't necessarily need anymore. But the one thing that stood out to me that she would say is like, you know, and it may sound a little hokey, but, you know, you sit in with an item and like, does it bring you joy? Right? Because sometimes we just keep things because it's mine, or I got this.
Well, we've had it so long.
Years ago, yeah. And so it's like, does this bring me joy? Or it can say, just like this question, like, does this serve me? If it does, then absolutely keep it. If it doesn't, she would like thank the item, like, thank you for, you know, what you brought into my life and from this time to this time, and gently, you know, it needs to go. Yeah. And so thinking of that, even with relationships, friendships, they have brought value at some point in time, right? And so it may not be the bestest, tightest. They're there for everything I'm going through day in and day out. But I appreciate the value that was, you know, held there. And perhaps there is still value there, but maybe on the, you know, the day to day, that's not my expectation. So it doesn't hurt when I don't necessarily talk to you or whatnot. But as you mentioned, when we get on the phone or if we're in the same space, this actually happened to me a couple of weeks ago. You know, inadvertently ran into a really, really good friend and just had the best time. And, you know, and it wasn't like I was thinking of cutting that person off, but it was just like, okay, times have changed. We're not going to do this every day, but when we do it, it's still a key.
Feel like it, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's absolutely. So I share all of that because every situation is not going to be black and white. Right. Yeah. Some will have the gray for you to consider. But yeah, if you know, a friendship is, and when you say no longer, so if it's lopsided, right? You're the only one calling, you're the only one trying to visit, you're the only one checking in. That I consider that more, you know, not serving. And then you have to decide what that looks like. But you should say something.
Yeah.
I don't think you can make that decision without saying
I think also there has to be a level of recognition, right? Whereas you may have always been the one that calls. And you may down the line notice this person doesn't call me. And it's kind of like, well, I never did. You know, it's like I'm always there when you do call. When you do call, I answer. But you call so often, I just haven't needed to because I feel like I talk to you all the time. Or some people don't even realize they don't call because the other person calls all the time. Like, hey,
Right.
like one could be like, but we talk all the time. And
Now that's just crazy. Okay, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking
right,
about somebody like the literal who picks up the phone to dial.
right.
But yeah, if you're talking all the time, that part should not matter.
But there are some
But
people
I'm just
like that
talking about,
though.
yeah. But that's not
Yeah.
what I was referring to.
No, I
I'm
get you. I
referring
get you.
to,
But I think there are some people that like, yeah, we talk all the time, but only because I call. And if I didn't call, we wouldn't talk all the time. Well, you don't know that because you always call, and
then just
like
stop
I know you're
calling
gonna call, right?
and see
But
what happens to
I
your
think I wanted to, yeah, I wanted to add to this. Like, it's very important, and I think it's awesome that you have that person that's only been around for a year or 5 years that is there more than the person that's been there for 25 years.
Yeah.
But also, you have those people. It's like at the job where you have those people that recognize things and they take initiative and they're very proactive and they jump to action, right?
Mhm.
But then you have those people who are good with what they're given. It's like, hey, I'm standing still and I'm available, but you haven't given me something to do.
Mhm.
And that person is not good at recognition. That person is not good at, well, what needs to be done, or they don't want to overstep, or, like, so give me a task and I'll execute that task, right?
Mhm.
And so I think there are certain people in your life, you have to let them know what to do. And then there's some people like, I'm not asking you nothing because I don't think you can't. I know you can't do that. I know this is not who you are. So I'm not
Mhm.
even going to set you up to fail. I'm not going to set
Yeah.
you up to disappoint me. And I had to learn that, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I
Yeah.
got this. You just come to the event. I don't. What you want me to do? Bring napkins. Like,
Like
like at the
yourself.
somebody, yeah,
Yeah.
bring paper goods or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I think it's taking inventory on who is who in your life, and you compartmentalize accordingly, right? Because I do know people that expect themselves from their friends,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
and I don't think that's fair. Like, I
Yeah, and
show up
it's
for.
not, yeah, and not necessarily on purpose, because I've been one of
Mhm,
those people,
mhm,
because that's what my world looked like, right? Like I was raised to be a particular type of person, and so when you go out in the world, you're not expecting to meet people that are beneath that standard, because that was the standard that was set for you.
mhm.
So I don't want to be super hard on folks like that. I think the more we live, we make the adjustments. But I think we all come to the party that way, thinking like, okay, this is what am I bringing to the table, right? Like, this is what
Right,
I'm bringing to the table. So I'm
right.
expecting this
Match
to
my
come back,
energy.
come back across the table. Yeah.
I wonder, should that conversation happen in friendships? So we talk about relationships, like, oh, what do you bring to the table?
Hmm.
I think just in
At this
talking
age,
now, yeah,
yes.
like,
At
okay,
this age,
what do you bring to the
what
table?
you bring?
Let's get to one more question before we wrap it up.
Oh my gosh. Let's say, how can we navigate the natural ebb and flow of friendships without feeling guilty or resentful when priorities shift and connections evolve?
I think that question answers itself, honestly. Like, what is a natural ebb and flow? I don't think I so I think the natural ebb and flow is whatever the friendship does. And if it shifts due to careers or, connections evolve, that's a natural ebb and flow. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
you let it. I would say this: don't try to stop it from happening. Like, if you
Right.
see a shift, you can't stop the shift from happening,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter how you may want to, like, you feel yourself drifting away from this person or this person drifting away from you. You can't stop that. Like, are you going to stop your life and where your life is going to hold on to this friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
they either are going to move along with you, or they're going to, or their life, they may be perfectly happy with their life, right? It might be, you might be soaring in your career and it's taking you places, but and they got married and had a kid and they are at home. Both of those things are awesome and amazing, right? And you let them, and so are either of you going to give those things up so that you can remain friends? You're going to give up your career because your friend has to be at home with their family? You're going to give up your family so that you can move around with your friend? No.
Right. Not
So
at all.
yeah, if life is taking you, and I don't want to say pulling you apart, it's just taking you in different directions. That's what life does. And the people, I think it's like this. We all had a best friend when we were in elementary school. That, for the majority of us, that person ain't in our life no more, right?
No, I just saw mine's having a baby. I was like, oh shoot, let me send that something.
There's people who,
I know who she is, but we are definitely not
like
in connection.
How many people have you that you hung tight with when you were in middle school and high school, and then now you was like, remember what's the name that was always with us? That was your friend at school. Y'all was friends. Y'all was, you know what I'm saying? Fighting other people together, like, nah, this the crew. And now you like, what was their name? Jonathan. Yeah, Jonathan. Man, Jonathan was, you barely remember these folks' name. Why? Because life has happened. Life is taking you. So like, I've moved out of state, and there's so many people who I don't even talk to no more. Not because anything happened, just because our proximity, our physical geographical proximity has changed. So now people are like, I don't think you was think of you as much because I don't see you as much. We don't get up and go to lunch anymore. So life and I'm not moving back to LA just so I can go to lunch with my friends. It's like, well, go to lunch when I'm there, if you answer or come through when I'm there. Because sometimes I've been in town and I'm like, hey, I'm in town, and they're, oh, I'm busy.
Child, tell me about it.
Or I'm coming to town. I can't get away. But ain't nobody canceling nothing. I mean, a couple of people, but like, for the most part, people are going on with their lives, and you were a part of the life that was already happening. You know what I'm saying? And so now life has changed, and you're not a part of it the way that you once were, and that needs to be okay.
That needs to be okay. Yeah, agreed. I mean, what little I would add to that is, just consider being on the other side, right? So I got married late. And so I watched a lot of friends not necessarily get married, but, like I said, have children, go through different transitions that I had not experienced yet. And, you don't necessarily understand while you're not there. But eventually life is going to shift for you too. It may not be the same way, but it'll shift. And so you'll want the same grace. Even for some of the gripes that I may have for friends, I consider like they might feel some kind of way about me that I'm not aware of, which is why I also say it's important to have the conversation, right? And so I have had a hard friend conversation in the last year to say, these are the expectations, and it just looks and feels weird. Let me know, like, what's happening with you. Are you okay? What can I do? You're trying to throw things out there, and the only thing that would make me end a friendship, if you will, and I have, was that there's no progress. And when I say no progress, not even an attempt at, right? Like, if I bring the situation to you, or you bring the situation to me, and neither one of us or one of us is not willing to hear and or make adjustments, then what are we doing? The only other time that I found myself saying like, no, I can't, is because I realized like that person really didn't like me, right? Like, it was like, we're in community. Maybe you liked certain things about me or proximity to me or something, but I got the distinct feeling like at the end of the day, you really don't like me. You don't wish well for me, that type of thing. And so I was like, I gotta get up out of here because I watch too much true crime. So I didn't, because that'd be a thing, right?
Right.
Oh, they were friends. And then one day,
they
chop
were
me up
once
and put me in a bag.
the best of friends.
Yeah.
And then one faithful day.
Child, yeah. So I had to bust a move out of that one.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think, there's room to grow and repair. But if nothing else, as you mentioned, it just shifts. And you welcome what that looks like. Because from my experience, what you need will always be available to you. It just may not come through the channels that you think it should come through, or the way, like you said, some people are like, well, tell me what to do. I'm not that kind of person. Right. So I'm not going to blame you for that, but I'm also not about to trying to hold myself together and figure out how to best empower you to do something for me. I might as well take care of myself. That's how I am. I'll be like, God bless you and thank you, and let me take care of myself, because while I'm telling you what to do, I could have done it or received it from somewhere else, which is generally what happens. And I'm not even like, I think the part that is hard for people like me is if you don't ask for anything much anyway. And then you have a need where it's like, oh my God, I'm almost scared to have a need.
Right. Yeah.
That's a hard space to, to exist in. But that's not, that's not any, that's some therapy work that we're going to have to do. But I recognize what that feels like. Like, you can absolutely have people around you that are like, I'll do whatever. And you're just like, I don't know what I need. I just know I'm bleeding. I don't know if I need a Band-Aid. I don't know if I need a bandage, needle and thread. I don't know.
Gotcha. So. Yeah. No. All right. So final thoughts. It can go. We went through a lot of spaces and friendships. We are finding are a lot more involved than a lot of people initially recognize. So what are your final thoughts on the seasons of friendships?
Oh, seasons. There are seasons, right? And so just like seasons in general are necessary, I think seasons of friendship are as well, to help you appreciate who you have, to shine light maybe on who you have in the situation that you're in. As you mentioned earlier, you may have always been operating in a particular way, and you need a season shift to show you how you need to shift or how they may need to shift. And so just welcoming the information and not making it the end of the world. I think, of course, when you're in elementary school and you're talking about, middle school, junior high school, I remember like friendships and friendship fallouts, it felt like the end of the world. It was like the whole world and then the end of the world, if something happened. But to your point, and I remember being sick. I don't know if it was a flu. Something was going around and everybody had their turn. And when I was out, and I feel like I came back to school and like all kind of mess had blown up and my name was in stuff. I didn't know, why were people saying and why somebody's not talking to me. And I remember feeling like it was the worst thing ever. And I don't know where many of those people are today. Facebook keeps some of us connected, but like, that's such a drop in the bucket, right? And even though, some friendships last into our adulthood, or we may make some in our adulthood, it's never the end of the world, right? There's generally opportunity for you to communicate and resolve if you are mature enough to do that, or there's opportunity for you to accept the new iteration of your friendship. When you left town, I was just like happy for you, because that was something that you wanted to do and needed to do for yourself, and feeling like, oh my gosh, that's not a drive away. I mean, I could get in the car, but that's not a regular, going from LA to the IE or something like that, or to the Valley. Like, that's far. Mm-hmm. What does that mean for our friendship? Now, thankfully, it just meant we were not sharing physical space. But sometimes, just depending on, the experience, people feel like that's the automatic demise of your friendship. And that's when you really have to take inventory of your root system, right? We have and have had enough beneath the ground, beneath the surface, to sustain a physical absence. Mm-hmm. Thank God for technological advances and all that, where we can see each other. But even with phone and text, I never felt like, and I was saying before we even got on the broadcast for you all, we have had our little riffs and tiffs, very minor, but I've never felt like our friendship was in the winter. Like, we wouldn't be friends. Mm-hmm. It would be like, now we could have to discuss some things, but I never felt like, oh, I couldn't call, or that we would not be friends. So I appreciate that about what we get to do together, not just here, but in our lives, and also being sensitive that my life is different. I appreciate that you champion the same things for me. So even if for whatever reason my priorities would be off, that you would help to realign me and say, right, this is what you should be thinking about, or have another thought about this. So that's a blessing as well, to have a friend that values what you value, and will back you up and support you and tell you the right thing. Be there for you in the good times, be there for you when things are not so good, and that also you would do the same. And, we have a whole love language episode, but this is something that I'm not sure that we got into today, that, it's not going to look the same for the other person, right? So sometimes, what it is that you need, you're going to have to get in the kitchen and chef it up a little differently to give it back, if you will, to the other person. So, seasons. We all still growing. Still growing.
Yeah. My final thoughts: get you some friends, right? And there are two moments with my friends. I have lots of moments, but let me just say, like, with you and with Maisha. Some of my recent, very, very dark moments, I remember talking to Maisha, and she was like, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me? So she's a mother of three, like living. And so I was like, look, you busy. You got things going on. Something was going on with my goddaughter. Her middle daughter is my goddaughter. And she was like, I don't care. She was like, I need you. You are needed. I need to know that you are okay. And when you're not, like, she appreciated me looking out for, like, I'm trying to look out for her, but she's like, no, like, when you are in need, no, like, I don't care what I'm going through, what's going on. It's about you too. This ain't just about me,
Right.
And then with Dre, I was talking about something else going on, and I was like going through. And I think she knows the magnitude when I don't have words. I think I was beyond words. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of the conversation, she just started praying. you know. And I appreciated that, and it just let me know who she is, who I am to her, who we are, and who she's always been to me. You know, because you got a lot of friends like, oh, I'm gonna pray for you, thoughts and prayers,
Thoughts
right?
and prayers.
But
Thoughts and prayers.
to be able to put into action what so many just say, right? I didn't ask, hey, just pray for me. I mean, we've said it like, hey, just keep praying for, but no,
Keep
like,
on
nah,
praying.
like it's right now. And what that also let me know is that when she's told me she's prayed for me, and when she tells me she's praying for me, I believe it. I don't. It she demonstrated it, and it's not just words, right? Um, so get you some friends that need you to be okay. Get you some friends that when they are needed, and when called upon in whatever capacity they show up, right?
Yeah.
Understand, like, don't put your friends in positions to fail. Don't ask more of your friends than you know they're capable of giving, right? Also understand your harvest does not always come from where you plant your seeds,
Amen.
right? It's about planting the seeds. Plant the seeds, right? You may plant a seed over here to someone that needs seeds, but then you get upset when you don't get the harvest or the return from that person. No, it's about planting the seed. That person may not be capable of returning that harvest. That's why they needed the seeds,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the harvest might come from somewhere else. Like Dre said earlier, this person you've only known 5 years
Yeah.
showed up. That's the harvest from the seeds that you planted over here, right? And so I think we would like it to come from certain places, and not just friendships, like a whole lot of things in our life. But when God shows up, he doesn't always show up in the place that you're looking, right? It's like that game we
Amen.
played in school when somebody comes and they tap you on the shoulder and you're like, wait, who's that, right?
Right.
It's like you looking for somebody to show up and walk through the door the whole time they've been sitting behind you, right? And so I think it's just understand who you are, understand what you need, understand what the people in your life have to offer, and manage accordingly, right? Um, and don't expect you from other people. Just
Mm-hmm.
be you, and be you because this is who you are.
This is who you. Right. Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? And that way, like if you operate in who you are, you'll never run out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
People get burnt out because they're doing it for a return, right? If it doesn't come natural to you, don't do it. Don't try to make a habit or a pattern. I'm not saying don't ever step outside of yourself. Yeah, sometimes you gotta stretch, right? But for the most part, like, be who you are, and you'll never run out of it. You can never run out of you, right? And then allow others to be who they are,
Right.
and I think you'll have um, such an easier time. Like,
Be
I'm the
free to
type
be
of
you.
person. Yeah,
Be
I
and
can
let
talk.
others be free to be them.
Yeah, if I talk to you every day, cool. If I don't, if I talk to you once a year, cool. Like, you're my friend nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I call you friend, you're friend. It just looks different. What I ask of you, if anything, looks different than what I ask of someone else. It
That's
looks
it.
different. You know what I'm saying? And that needs to be okay, right? So y'all, I have such fun with talking to y'all. And I'm so, as Dre would say, over the moon that I get to do this with her. That we share this space, that we share a common vision for this, because that's what keeps it going. The fact that we're aligned in what we're doing and where we're going, and we want to take y'all along for the ride. So before we close out, don't forget, scroll down, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, like and share. And don't forget to go to our Patreon, y'all. Patreon.com/the Crossroads. Choose your support level and come on the ride with us. So again, we have so much more content that's going to be in the members area that's coming at you. very, very soon, and we want you to be a part of all of that. All right. So, in closing, as always, until next week, remember.
Be free to be you.
See y'all next week.
Have a great one.
This has been the Crossroads Podcast. And remember, be free to be you.